Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, and pranams. Thank you all for joining in for our Krishna book study session. We are on chapter number 87. So we were speaking about it last Wednesday, right? Last Friday. We were continuing with the chapter of 87, where we were talking about how this human form of life is a wonderful opportunity for us to understand our position as a servant of the Lord, to understand the position of the Lord as Bhoktaram Yajna Tapasam, as the master, and also understand the process of Abhideya, how we can engage in the process of devotional service and attain the eternal success, which is Krishna Prema. So, Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojana. Okay, now let's continue reading chapter number 87. Let me share my screen. The personified, okay, Deval Mataji, go ahead. And then Archana Mataji can read. Yes.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Mataji, Pranam. The personified Vedas continue. Dear Lord, there are many mystic yogis who are very learned and deliberate in achieving the highest perfection of life. They engage themselves in the yogic process of controlling the life air within the body, concentrating the mind upon the form of Vishnu and controlling the senses very rigidly. They practice the yoga system. But even after much laborious austerity, penance, and regulation, they achieve the same destinations as persons inimical toward you. In other words, both the yogis and the great wise philosophical speculators ultimately attain the impersonal Brahman effulgence, which is automatically attained by the demons who are regular enemies of the Lord. Demons like Kamsa, Shishupal, and Dantavakra attain the Brahman effulgence because they constantly meditate upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead out of enmity. The real point is to concentrate in the mind of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Women such as the gopis were attached to Krishna, being captivated by his beauty, and their mental concentration on Krishna was provoked by lust. They wanted to embrace they wanted to be embraced by the arms of Krishna, which resemble the beauty round shape of a snake. Beautiful round shape of a snake. Similarly, we, the Vedic hymns, simply concentrate our minds on the lotus feet of your lordship. Women like the gopis concentrate upon you under the dictation of lust, and we concentrate upon your lotus feet to go back home, back to Godhead. Your enemies also concentrate upon you, thinking always of how to kill you, and yogis undertake great penances and austerities just to attain your impersonal effulgence. All these different persons, although concentrating their minds in different ways, achieve spiritual perfection according to their different perspectives, because you, O Lord, are equal to all your devotees. Sridhara Swami has composed a nice verse in this regard. My dear Lord, to be engaged always in thinking of your lotus feet is very difficult. It is possible for great devotees who have already achieved love for you and are engaged in transcendental loving service. My dear Lord, I wish that my mind may also be fixed somehow or other on your lotus feet, at least for some time. The attainment of spiritual perfection by different spiritualists is explained in the Bhagavad Gita, wherein the Lord says that he grants the perfection the devotee desires in proportion to the devotee's surrender unto him. The impersonalist yogis and enemies of the Lord enter into the Lord's transcendental effulgence, but the personalists who follow in the footstep of the inhabitants of Vrindavana or strictly follow the path of devotional service are elevated to the personal abode of Krishna, Goloka Vrindavan, or to the Vaikuntha planets. Both the impersonalist and the personalist enter the spiritual realm, the spiritual sky, but the impersonalists are given their place in the impersonal Brahman effulgence, whereas the personalists are given a position in the Vaikuntha planets or in the Vrindavana planet, according to their desire to serve the Lord in different mellows. The personified Vedas stated that persons born after the creation of this material world cannot understand the existence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead by manipulating their material knowledge. Just as a person born in a particular family cannot understand the position of his great grandfather who lived before the birth of the recent generation, we are unable to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayana or Krishna, who exists eternally in the spiritual world. In the 8th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, it is clearly said that the Supreme Person who lives eternally in the spiritual kingdom of God, Sanatana Dham, can be approached only by devotional service. As for the material creation, Brahma is the first created person. Before Brahma, there was no living creature within this material world. It was void and dark until Brahma was born on the lotus flower that sprouted from the abdomen of Garbhodakshai Vishnu. Garbhodakshai Vishnu is an expansion of Karnodakshai Vishnu. Karnodakshai Vishnu is an expansion of Sankarshana, and Sankarshana is an expansion of Balram, who is an immediate expansion of Lord Krishna. After the creation of Brahma, the two kinds of demigods were born. Demigods like the four brothers, Sanaka, Sanatana, Sanadana, and Sanatakumara, who are representatives of renunciation of the world, and demigods like Marichi and their descendants, who are meant to enjoy this material world. From these two kinds of demigods were gradually manifested all other living entities, including the human beings. Thus, all living creatures within the material world, including Brahma, all the demigods, and all the Rakshasas, are to be considered modern. This means that they were all born recently. Therefore, just as a person born recently in a family cannot understand the situation of his distant forefather, no one within this material world can understand the position of the Supreme Lord in the spiritual world, because the material world has only recently been created. Although they have a long duration of existence, all the manifestations of the material world, namely the time element, the living entities, the Vedas, and the gross and subtle material elements, are created at some point. Thus, any process manufactured within this created situation as a means for understanding the original source of creation is to be considered modern. Therefore,
Hare Krishna.
by the
Thank you,
process.
Mataji.
Okay. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Adaratana.
Hare Bol, Hare Krishna. So Krishna tells in Bhagavad Gita, Aham sarvasya prabhavo mattah sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddhabhava samannitaha. So Krishna is saying that I am the source of all the material and the spiritual worlds. Right? And even in the Chaturshloki verse of Bhagavatam, Krishna is saying, Riteratam pratiyeta na pratiyeta chatmani tadvidyad atmano mayam yata bhaso yata tamaha. And also the first Chaturshloki verse of Srimad Bhagavatam. Ahamevasamevagre na anyadhyat sadasatparam tasmadaham. What is that? Ahamevasamevagre. That means I was existing before the material creation, and I exist after the annihilation, and I only exist for the maintenance, right? Aham evasamevagre na anyad sadasatparam tasmadaham yadetasya yovasishyeta sosmyaham. Right? Aham evasam evagre. That means nobody existed before me. Na anyad yad sadasatparam. No one will exist after the annihilation of this world. Paschat aham yadetasya yo avasishyeta so asmya aham. I am the only one who's going to exist after the annihilation. I was the one who existed before the creation, and I am the one who's maintaining all the worlds. So this is what is the Chaturshloki verse of Srimad Bhagavatam 2.9.33. It's talking about how Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna only existed before creation. Krishna only is maintaining the creation, and Krishna is only annihilating the creation through his various incarnations. Right? The secondary creation happens through Brahma. The maintenance happens through Vishnu, and the annihilation happens through Lord Shiva. Right? Although the the guna avatars, right? The various gunas are managed by like Shiva, Brahma, and Vishnu, and the various Vishnus, namely Garbhodakasha Vishnu, Kshirodakasha Vishnu, and Karanodakasha Vishnu, they create this entire material universe, right? From their body, from their the pores of their body, the entire Brahmanda is created. Right? But everything originally emanates from Lord Krishna. Why? Because Garbhodakasha Vishnu, Kshirodakasha Vishnu, all are expansions of Krishna. All are incarnations of Krishna. Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, they are all guna incarnations of the Lord, right? Guna avatar, Lila avatar, Purusha avatar, Manmantra avatar, Yuga avatar, etc. So everything is considered, everything has to be understood to be emanating from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna. So everything else that is manifested later has come from either the amshas of the Lord or Vimin amsha of the Lord, right? Everything is composed of the Lord. Everything has its base in the Lord. Maya adhyakshena prakriti suyatesha characharam. Right? Krishna is also saying, right? Sutra mani gana iva, right? Like the pearls are being strung on the thread, but the thread is not seen. Similarly, I am not seen in this creation, but everything happens according to what I have created and what I have planned, according to Lord Krishna's plan in the entire world. Okay, let's move ahead. Okay, Archana Mataji, go ahead. Therefore, with the process of self-realization from there.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Therefore, by the process of self-realization or God realization through fruitive activities, philosophical speculations or mystic yoga, one cannot actually approach the supreme source of everything. When the creation is completely terminated, when there is no existence of Vedas, no existence of material time, and no existence of the gross and subtle material elements, and when all living entities are in non-manifested stage, resting within Narayana, then all these manufactured processes become null and void and cannot act. Devotional service, however, becomes null, and devotional service, however, is eternally going on in the eternal spiritual world. Therefore, the only factual process of self-realization or God realization is devotional service, and one who takes to this process takes to the real process of God realization. In this regard, Srila Sridhara Swami has composed a verse which conveys the idea that supreme source of everything, the supreme personality of Godhead, is so great and unlimited that it is not possible for every living entity to understand him by any material acquisition. One should therefore pray to the Lord to be engaged in this devotional service eternally, so that by the grace of the Lord one can understand the supreme source of creation. The supreme source of creation, the supreme Lord, reveals himself only to the devotees. In 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says to Arjuna, "My dear Arjuna, because you are my devotee and because you are my intimate friend, I shall reveal to you the process of understanding me." In other words, the supreme source of creation, the supreme personality of Godhead, cannot be understood by our own endeavor. We have to please him with devotional service, and then he will reveal himself to us. Then we can understand him to some extent. There are different kinds of philosophers who have tried to understand the supreme source by their mental speculation. There are generally 6 kinds of mental speculators whose speculations are called Saddarshana. All these philosophers are impersonalists and known as Mayavatis. Every one of them has tried to establish his own opinion, although they all have later compromised and stated that all opinions led to the same goal and that every opinion is therefore valid. According to the prayers of personified Vedas, however, none of them is valid because their process of knowledge is created within the temporary material world. They have all missed the real point. The supreme personality of Godhead or absolute truth can be understood only by the devotional service. One class of philosophers known as Mimamsakas, represented by sages such as Jaimini, have concluded that everyone should engage in pious activities or prescribed duties, and that such activities will lead one to highest perfection. But this is contradicted in the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where Lord Krishna says that by pious activity, one may be elevated to heavenly planets, but that as soon as one's accumulation of pious activity is used up, one has to leave the enjoyment of higher standard of material prosperity in heavenly planets and immediately come down again to these lower planets, where the duration of life is very short and where the standard of material happiness is of low grade. The exact words used in Bhagavad Gita are Shine Punya Matya Lokam Vishanti. Therefore, the conclusion of Mimamsaka philosopher that pious activities will lead one to absolute truth is not valid. Although a pure devotee is by nature inclined to perform pious activity, no one can attain the favor of Supreme Personality of Godhead by pious activities alone. Pious activities may purify one of contamination caused by ignorance and passion, but this purification is automatically attained by the devotee constantly engaged in hearing the transcendental message of Godhead in form of Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, or similar scriptures. From Bhagavad Gita, we understand that even a person who is not up to the standard of pious activity, but who is absolutely engaged in devotional service, is considered well situated on the path of spiritual perfection. It is also said in Bhagavad Gita that a person who is engaged in devotional service with love and faith is guided from within by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord himself as Paramatma or spiritual master, sitting within one's heart, gives the devotee exact direction by which he can gradually go back to Godhead. The conclusion of Mimamsaka philosopher is not actually the truth which can lead one to real understanding. Hare Krishna Mataji. Thank you, Mataji. Should I continue, Mataji?
No, okay, thank you, Mataji. So here
Thank
we
you,
are
Mataji.
saying about the Mayavadi philosophy. What is Mayavadi philosophy? Mayavadi philosophy states that when Krishna appears in this world, he is also subject to Maya. That means Maya is greater than Krishna. And then Prabhupada is actually defeating this philosophy by saying that how can Maya be greater than Krishna? Right? Because Daivi Hayesha Gunamayi Mama Maya Duratyaya Mameva Ye Prapadyante Maya Metam Tarantite. The other day we will also be discussing about it. That the energy is always under the control of the energetic, right? The energy is utilized by the energetic in ways that the energetic wants, right? So in this case, when we are talking about if Maya, which is the energy of the Lord, is greater than the Lord himself, then Maya should be God, right? Because these Mayavadis, what do they say? Krishna is a Lord, but when he comes down to the material world, when he takes an avatar, then he is subject to the 3 modes of material nature. And when I also make my life perfect, then I will also become God, right? So in that way, Krishna also became God. and I will also become God. That is the Mimamsaka philosophers, right? That I perform pious activities, I perfect my life, and then I will become God, right? Pious activities means activities done in the mode of Sattva Guna, right? When a person is in the Sattva Guna, there are very high chances of a person easily taking up the process of bhakti. But simply pious activities alone will not enable one to get to the platform of devotional service. Whereas a person who may not have pious qualities, right? When Prabhupada went to the Western world, they had all the vices, right? They were not following any of the regulated principles. Yet Prabhupada made every one of them, whoever had surrendered to Prabhupada had made them pure devotees of the Lord, right? Although they did not have any pious qualities. Why? Because if you are yasyasti bhaktir bhagavati akinchana, sarvair gunaistattra samasade suraha, right? If someone is engaging in bhakti, yasyasti bhaktir bhagavati akinchana. Bhagavati means Supreme Personality of Godhead. If one is engaging in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even though he may not have any good qualities, automatically he will develop those good qualities of the suras or of the demigods. Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavati kinchana sarvair gunais tatra samasate suraha. All the good qualities of the demigods will manifest in a person who is a devotee of the Lord. However, the same is not true vice versa. That simply because somebody has pious qualities, it is not necessary that that person will take up to the process of devotional service. Okay, let's move ahead. Similarly, there are also others like Sankhya philosophers. Okay, Sridhar Prabhu, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam Mataji. Similarly, there are Sankhya philosophers, metaphysicians, or the mathematics scientists who study this cosmic manifestation by their invented scientific method and do not recognize the supreme authority of God as the creator of cosmetic manifestation. They wrongly conclude that the reaction of the material element are the original cause of creation. The Bhagavad Gita, however, does not accept this theory. It is clearly said therein that behind the cosmic activities is the direction of the Supreme Personality of the Godhead. This fact is corroborated by the Vedic injunction Sattva Samayam Agrasit, which means that the origin of the creation existed before the cosmic manifested. Therefore, the material element cannot be caused of the material creation. Although the material element are accepted as immediate cause, the ultimate cause is the Supreme Personality of the Godhead Himself. The Bhagavad Gita says, therefore, the material nature was under the direction of Krishna. The conclusion of the atheist Sankhya philosophy is that because the phenomena of this material world are temporary or illusory, the cause of therefore are illusory. The Sankhya philosopher are the favor of Bodhisam. But the actual fact is that original cause of the Supreme Personality of the Godhead and the cosmic manifestation is the temporary manifestation of the material energy. When this temporary manifestation is the annihilated, its cause, the eternal existence of the spiritual world continues as it is, and therefore the spiritual world is called Sanatana Dharma, the eternal abode. The conclusion of the Sankhya philosopher is therefore invalid. Then there are the philosophers headed by the Gautama and Kannada. There have been minutely studied the cause and effect of the material element and have ultimately come to the conclusion that atomic combination is the original cause of creation. At present, the materialistic scientists follow the footsteps of Gautama and Kannada, who propound this theory called Paramanuvada. The theory of, however, cannot be supported for the original cause of everything is not inert atoms. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam as well as the Vedas, wherein it is stated, Eko Narayana assist, only the Narayana existed before the creation. Srimad Bhagavatam and the Vedanta Sutra also say that the original cause is the synetic and both indirectly and directly cognizant of everything within this creation. The Bhagavad Gita, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Atam Sarvaisya Prabhava. I am the original cause of everything, and the Mattas Sarvam Pravartade. From me, everything comes into the existence. Therefore, atoms may form in the basic of combination of material existence, but these atoms are generated from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, the philosophy of the Gautama and Kandana cannot be supported. Similarly, impersonalities headed by the Astavara and later by the Sankaracharya accept the impersonal Brahman effulgence as the cause of everything. According to their theory, the material manifestation is temporary and unreal, whereas the impersonal Brahman effulgence is reality. But this theory cannot be supported either, because the Lord himself says in the Bhagavad Gita that the Brahman effulgence rests on his philosophy. It is confirmed in the Brahma Samhita that the Brahman effulgence is the personal bodily rays of Krishna. As such, impersonal Brahman cannot be the original cause of the cosmic manifestation. The original cause of all is all the perfect sentient personality of the Godhead Govinda. The most dangerous theory of the impersonalities is that when God comes to an incarnation, he accepts a material body created by three modes of material nature. This Mayavada theory has been condemned by the Lord Chaitanya as most offensive. He has said that anyone who accepts the transcendental body of the personality of the Godhead to be made of material nature commit the greatest offense as at the lotus feet of Vishnu. Similarly, the Bhagavad Gita also states that when the personality of Godhead descends in the human form, only fools and rascals deride him. This actually occurred when Lord Krishna and Lord Rama and Lord Chaitanya moved within the human society as human beings. The personified Vedas condemns the impersonal conception as the gross misrepresentation. In the Brahma Samhita, the body of Supreme Personality of Godhead is described as Ananta Chinmaya Rasa. The Supreme Personality of Godhead possesses a spiritual body, not a material body. He can enjoy anything through any part of his body, and therefore he is omnipotent. The limbs and the material body can perform only a particular function. For example, the hands can hold but cannot see or hear. But because the body of the Supreme Personality of the Godhead is made of Ananya Chinmaya Rasa, and thus the Sat Chit Ananda Vigraha, he can enjoy anything and do everything within any of his limbs. Acceptance of the spiritual body of the Lord as material is directed by the tendency to equate the Supreme Personality of Godhead with the conditioned soul. The conditioned soul as the material body. Therefore, if God also has a material body, then impersonality's theory that the Supreme Personality of the Godhead and living entities are one and the same can be very easily propagated. Factually.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Dandavad Pranam Mataji.
Kalendriya Vrittimanti Pashyanti Panti Kalayanti Chiram Jaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sudujjwala Vigrahasya Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasya Sakalendriya Vrittimanti. That means the Lord can do any function of any of the senses through any of its other senses. Whereas we can only see with our eyes, we can only smell through our nose, we can only taste with our tongue. Right? If we just had something very hot, the tongue also loses the capacity to taste, at least for some time, right? There is no sensation in the tongue, because especially if you've drunk something very hot, right? Then our tongue also loses the capacity to taste for a while. But the Lord is not conditioned. Lord's senses are not limited like our senses, right? With our eyes only we can see. Sometimes something falls into our eye, we cannot even see, right? We can taste only with our tongue, and something hot we drink, we cannot taste with our tongue. Our ears also can hear only up to certain decibels. Some range of decibels only our ear can hear. Similarly, our eyes can see only certain range of vision, right? So in this way, our senses are limited, whereas the Lord can perform any activity with any of his senses, because the Lord's senses are transcendental, whereas our senses are limited in this material world. Okay, let's go ahead. Sindhu Mataji, go ahead. Factually.
Hare Krishna Mataji, pranams. Hare Bol Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So actually, when the Supreme Personality of Godhead comes, he exhibits a non-material body. And thus there is no difference between his childish body when he is lying on the lap of his mother Yashoda and his so-called grown-up body fighting with the demons. In his childhood body, he also fought with demons such as Pujana, Srinavarta, and Agasura, with strength equal to that with which he fought in his youth against demons like Dandavakra and Shishupala. In material life, as soon as a conditioned soul changes his body, he forgets everything of his past body. But from the Bhagavad Gita, we understand that because Krishna has a Sachidananda body, he did not forget instructing the sun god about the Bhagavad Gita millions of years ago. The Lord is therefore known as Purushottama because he is transcendental to both material and spiritual existence. That he is the cause of all causes means that he is the cause of the spiritual world and of the material world as well. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is omnipotent and omniscient. Therefore, because a material body can be neither omnipotent nor omniscient, the Lord's body is surely not material. The Mayavada theory that the personality of Godhead comes within this material world with a material body cannot be supported by any means. It can be concluded that all the theories of the materialistic philosophers are generated from temporary, illusory existence, like the conclusions in a dream. Such conclusions certainly cannot lead us to the absolute truth. The absolute truth can be realized only through devotional service. As the Lord says in the Bhagavad Gita, Bhaktya Mam Abhijanati, only by the devotional service can one understand me. Srila Sridhara Swami has composed a nice verse in this regard, which states, My dear Lord, let others engage in false argument and dry speculation, theorizing upon great philosophical theses. Let them loiter in the darkness of ignorance and illusion, falsely enjoying as if very learned scholars, although they are without knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As far as I am concerned, I wish to be liberated simply by chanting the holy names of all beautiful Supreme Personality of Godhead, Madhava, Vamana, Trinayana, Shankarshana, Shripati, and Govinda. Simply by chanting your transcendental names, O Lord Madhupati, let me become free from the contamination of this material existence. In this way, the personified Vedas said, Dear Lord, when a living entity by your grace only comes to the right conclusion about your exalted transcendental position, he no longer bothers with the different theories manufactured by the mental speculators or so-called philosophers. This is a reference to the speculative theories of Gautama, Kannada, Patanjali, and Kapila, Nirishwara. There are actually two Kapilas. One Kapila, the son of Kardama Muni, is an incarnation of God, and the other is an atheist of the modern age. The atheistic Kapila is often misrepresented to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Lord Kapila, the incarnation of Godhead, appeared as the son of Kardama Muni long, long ago during the time of Swayambhuva Manu. The modern age is the age of Vaivashvata Manu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Bol. Right. So, Krishna tells in Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, right? Both of us have taken numerous incarnations. Whenever Krishna appears, Arjuna also appears with Krishna. The Vrajavasis also appear with Krishna. Why? Because Krishna is never there. Krishna will never be there without his associates. Right? Krishna is eternally with his the flute. That's why the four Madhuryas are there, right? The Rupa Madhurya, Venu Madhurya, Leela Madhurya, and Prema Madhurya, right? So Krishna is always surrounded by his wonderful devotees who exchange loving reciprocation with the Lord all the time, right? So it is not like, the devotees do not understand this concept of merging into the Brahman or being guided by the Paramatma within the heart. In fact, the gopis say, we want to forget Krishna, but we are not able to forget Krishna, right? So that is the attitude of a devotee. Whereas those who are propagators of Mayavadi philosophy or the Sankhya philosophies or the atheistic philosophies, what do they say? They either say that, after this lifetime, we can also perfect our life and merge into the Brahman. Or they say that the Lord, when he appears in this world, he is also subject to the three modes of material nature, which is very clearly proved wrong, right? And Prabhupada also talks here about two Kapilas, right? One is the Kapila, is the son of Kardama Muni and Devahuti, right? There's a small book also, Instructions of Lord Kapila Damadai, the son of Devahuti, right? He instructs his own mother because he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, right? Whereas imposters, what do? They try to understand the philosophy through their own mental speculation, and they try to confuse others also. That is why it is important to hear only from those who are coming in a bona fide Guru Parampara. Otherwise, better not to hear. Otherwise, we need to learn the wrong things, then to unlearn everything, and then we have to learn again. Okay. Anyone else wants to read? Can raise your hands, and then we can go ahead. According to Mayavada philosophy, this manifested world or material world is mithya or maya, false. The Mayavadi preaching principle is Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. Only the Brahman effulgence is true and the cosmic manifestation is illusory or false. But according to the Vaishnava philosophy, this cosmic manifestation is true because it is created by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that he enters within this material world by one of his plenary portions, and thus the creation takes place. From the Vedas also we can understand that this asat or temporary cosmic manifestation is an emanation from the supreme sat or fact. From the Vedanta Sutra also it is understood that everything is emanated from the supreme Brahman. Therefore, the Vaishnavas do not take this cosmic manifestation to be false. Because the Supreme Personality of Godhead has entered this cosmic manifestation in the form of the plenary expansion and caused the creation, the Vaishnava philosophers see everything in this material world in relationship with the Supreme Lord, right? We saw how Krishna incarnates into the Purusha avatars, and then the Karnakasha Vishnu, from his pores, millions of material universes are created, and then as Garbhatakasha Vishnu, he enters each universe and is lying down in his sleeping position, from whose navel Brahma comes out. Brahma creates the material universe, the secondary creation. And then we also know about Kshirodakasha Vishnu situated in everyone's heart as a Paramatma. So we know how the process of how all these are created. So these cannot be false because they're existing. The process of the creation is given. The process of the annihilation is given. So it is temporary, which is true, but it is not false. That is where there is a confusion here. Okay. Next, Rajesh Prabhu, please go ahead. This conception.
Hare Krishna Mataji Dandar Pranam. This conception of the material world is very nicely explained by Srila Rup Goswami, who says that when persons renounce the material world as illusory or false without knowing that the material world is a manifestation of the Supreme Lord, their renunciation is of no value. The Vaishnavas, however, are free of attachment to this world because although the material world is generally accepted as an object of sense gratification, the Vaishnavas are not in favor of sense gratification and are therefore not attached to material activities. The Vaishnava accepts this material world according to regulative principles of the Vedic injunction and works without attachment. Since the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the original cause of everything, the Vaishnava sees everything in the relationship with Krishna, even in the material world, even in this material world. By such advanced knowledge, everything becomes spiritualized. In other words, everything in the material world is already spiritual, but due to our lack of knowledge, we see things as material. The personified Vedas presented the example that those seeking gold don't reject gold earrings, gold bangles, or anything else made of gold simply because they are shaped differently from the original gold. All living entities are part and parcel of the Supreme Lord and are qualitatively one with Him. But they are now differently shaped in 8,40,000 species of life,
84 lakhs.
just like many different ornaments manufactured from the same source of gold. As one who is interested in gold accepts all the differently shaped gold ornaments, so a Vaishnava, knowing well that all the living entities are of the same quality as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, accepts all living entities as eternal servants of God. A Vaishnava then has ample opportunity to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead simply by reclaiming these conditioned, misled living entities, training them in Krishna consciousness, and leading them back home, back to Godhead. The fact is that the minds of the living entities are now agitated by the three material qualities, and the living entities are therefore transmigrating as if in dreams from one body to another. Then their consciousness is changed into Krishna consciousness. However, they immediately seek Krishna with their hearts, and thus their path towards liberation becomes clear. In all the Vedas, the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the living entities are stated to be of same quality,
Chetana.
Chetana or spiritual. This is confirmed in Padam Puran, wherein it is said that there are two kinds of spiritual entities. One is called Jiva and the other is called Supreme Lord. From the Lord Brahma down to the end, all living entities are Jivas, whereas the Lord is the Supreme Four-handed Vishnu or Janardana. Strictly speaking, the word Atma can be applied only to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But because the living entities are his parts and parcels, sometimes the word Atma is applied to them also. The living entities are the living entities are therefore called Jivatma and the Supreme Lord is called Paramatma. Both the Paramatma and Jivatma are within this material world, and therefore this material world has a purpose other than sense gratification. The conception of a life of sense gratification is illusion, but the conception of service by Jivatma to the Paramatma, even in this material world, is not at all illusory. A Krishna conscious person is fully aware of this fact, and thus he does not take this material world to be false, but acts in the reality of transcendental service. The devotee therefore sees everything in this material world as an opportunity to serve the Lord. He does not reject anything as material, but dovetails everything in the service of the Lord. Thus, a devotee is always in the transcendental position, and everything he uses becomes spiritually purified by being used in the Lord's service. Sridhara Swami has composed a nice verse in this regard. I worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is always manifested as reality, even within the material world, which is considered by some to be false. The conception of the falsity of this material world is due to a lack of knowledge, but a person advanced in Krishna consciousness sees the Supreme Personality of Godhead in everything. This is actual realization of the Vedic aphorism Sarvam Khalad
Ah,
Idam Brahm. Everything is Brahman.
okay, thank
The
you.
first
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
So everything is Brahman means all the living entities, we all have the Chetana or the consciousness, right? If we are alive means we are the consciousness, we are alive, the life force is exhibited in we being able to talk, we being able to move because of the presence of the consciousness, because of the presence of the soul and the super soul within our body. We are able to walk, we are able to talk, we are able to move about, right? All these things we are able to do, right? That's why Prabhupada also says in his lecture, right? Right now the person was standing here, and when the person dies, what do we say? We say the person has left. He has left. So who has left? The soul has left. That means we are not the body, we are the spirit soul, right? And also here in this particular paragraph, purpose is also saying, right? We think that the entire world, Jagat Mithya, if the entire world is not even existing, is not real, right? Is false, means what are the things that are happening? We are perceiving certain things, right? We are perceiving human beings, we are perceiving so many jivas, so many 8.4 million species are getting created and annihilated. So how can we ever say that they are false? Right? It is only due to lack of knowledge that a person thinks that everything is false. However, everything is temporary. Right? Why everything is temporary? Because the entire material world will get annihilated. So what is eternal? The jiva is eternal. And then what does the jiva or the soul carry with it? The soul carries with it the mind, intelligence, and false ego. That means the desires and the karmic account of the particular person is being carried, right? And according to the desires and activities of the living entity, one gets another body to progress from where one has left, right? One has left. That means if somebody has not practiced devotional service at all, then, he may even have to be born, in case he's engaged in a lot of sinful activities. He may even get the body of a dog or a hog or a reptile or a beast or a bird or a flower or a plant, etc. Right? But at least when we have practiced devotional service, at least what is assured for us is that we have a human form, right? Where we continue from where we left off in our devotional service. So we are spirit souls, but according to our desires and our activities, we get ourselves or we buy ourselves another body, right? Wherein we try to fulfill our own interests and desires, right? That is why we have to be very careful. What are the desires I'm cultivating? Because the next body, if we have not perfected our life, the next body will be the body that will facilitate us to fulfill those desires. Hence, it is very dangerous to have the wrong kinds of desires. All right, so devotees can switch on your cameras and then quickly we'll do Harinam Sankirtan and we end our session. Tomorrow, we'll continue with chapter number 87 of the Krishna book. Namah Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Asatyadeshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Gauranitai Jai Jai Jagannath Jaya Jai Baladev Jai Jai Subhadra Jai Jai Sudarshan Jai Bala Gopal Jaya Rukmini Vital Jai Prahlad Narsinga Jaya Lakshmi Narsinga Jai Radhe Shyam Jaya Radha Rasa Bihari Shri Radhe Jaya Sadguru Swami Jaya Guru Parampara Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Guru Deva Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Harinam Sankirtan ki jai Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada Srila Gurudev ki jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai Itai Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bol Hare Krishna. So thank you, devotees. We'll meet you all tomorrow morning 5 o'clock, the Brahma Muhurta chanting session, and then we'll meet at 12 o'clock, mostly at 12 o'clock, as we continue to 12 or 1 o'clock. I'll confirm in the group. We will continue with the study of chapter number 87 of the Krishna book. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Gurudev ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Nitai Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Thank you, devotees.